Hello, young learners. Today, we are going to hear an amazing story. It's about a man named Martin Luther King Jr. He was a leader who dreamed of equality for all people. Listening to his story will help you learn English easily. So, let's begin. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. His parents, Martin Luther King Sr. and Alberta Williams King, were loving and supportive. Martin had an older sister named Christine and a younger brother named Alfred. The family lived in a close-knit African-American community where they were well respected. Martin's father was a pastor at the Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, and his mother was a schoolteacher. The King family valued education and faith. They taught Martin to stand up for what was right and to treat everyone with kindness and respect. As a child, Martin was curious and eager to learn. He loved reading books and listening to stories from his parents and grandparents. He enjoyed going to church and hearing his father preach about love and justice. These early experiences shaped Martin's character and instilled in him a strong sense of fairness and compassion. Martin attended a segregated school where African American children were separated from white children. Despite the challenges of segregation, he excelled in his studies. He was a bright and determined student who dreamed of making a difference in the world. When Martin was 12 years old, a tragic event occurred that deeply affected him. His grandmother, whom he loved dearly, passed away. Martin was heartbroken and struggled to understand why such a good person had to die. This experience made him think deeply about life, faith, and the importance of standing up for what is right. Martin's early life was filled with lessons of love, faith, and justice. His family's values and his experiences in the segregated South shaped his dreams and aspirations. He was determined to work towards a better future where everyone was treated equally. As Martin Luther King Jr. grew older, he continued to excel in his studies. He graduated from high school at the age of 15 and went on to attend Morehouse College in Atlanta. Morehouse was a prestigious college for African American men, and Martin was eager to continue his education there. At Morehouse, Martin was influenced by the president of the college, Dr. Benjamin Mays. Dr. Mays was a strong advocate for social justice and equality. He encouraged Martin to think critically about the world and to use his talents to make a difference. Dr. Mays became a mentor to Martin and had a profound impact on his life. Martin also studied theology and philosophy, which deepened his understanding of faith and justice. He was inspired by the teachings of great thinkers like Mahatma Gandhi, who believed in nonviolence and peaceful resistance. Martin was drawn to Gandhi's philosophy and saw it as a powerful way to fight against injustice. After graduating from Morehouse, Martin went on to study at Crozer Theological Seminary in Pennsylvania. There, he continued to explore his passion for social justice and nonviolence. He excelled in his studies and was elected president of the student body. Martin's time at Crozer further strengthened his commitment to fighting for equality. Martin's journey of education did not stop there. He earned his doctorate in theology from Boston University. During his time in Boston, he met and married Coretta Scott, a talented musician and fellow advocate for social justice. Coretta shared Martin's passion for equality, and together, they became a powerful team in the fight for civil rights. Martin's education and early influences played a crucial role in shaping his beliefs and values. The teachings of Dr. Benjamin Mays, the philosophy of nonviolence, and the support of his family and mentors guided him on his path to becoming a leader. He was determined to use his education and talents to fight for a world where everyone was treated with dignity and respect. In 1955, a significant event occurred that would change the course of Martin Luther King Jr.'s life and the civil rights movement. It all began with a brave woman named Rosa Parks. On December 1, 1955, Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, refused to give up her seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus in Montgomery, Alabama. At that time, buses were divided, with white passengers sitting in the front and black passengers in the back. Rosa's act of defiance led to her arrest, and it sparked outrage in the African-American community. The community decided to take a stand against segregation and launched the Montgomery bus boycott. They chose Martin Luther King Jr., who was a young pastor at the Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, to lead the boycott. Martin's leadership and powerful speeches inspired the community to come together and demand change. The boycott lasted for 381 days. During this time, African Americans refused to ride the city buses, opting instead to walk, carpool, or find other means of transportation. The boycott put economic pressure on the bus system and demonstrated the power of collective action. Throughout the boycott, Martin faced many challenges. He received threats and was arrested, but he remained steadfast in his commitment to nonviolence. He believed that peaceful resistance was the most powerful way to fight against injustice. The Montgomery bus boycott gained national attention and highlighted the struggles faced by African Americans in the segregated South. It showed the world the power of unity and nonviolent protest. In 1956, the Supreme Court ruled that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional, marking a significant victory for the civil rights movement. The success of the Montgomery bus boycott solidified Martin Luther King Jr.'s position as a leader in the fight for civil rights. His leadership and commitment to nonviolence inspired others to join the movement and work towards a world of equality and justice. After the success of the Montgomery bus boycott, Martin Luther King Jr. continued to play a leading role in the civil rights movement. He co-founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, in 1957. The SCLC aimed to advance the cause of civil rights through nonviolent means and was committed to achieving social justice and equality for African Americans. Martin traveled across the country, organizing and leading nonviolent protests and demonstrations. He spoke out against segregation, discrimination, and racial injustice. His powerful speeches and unwavering commitment to nonviolence inspired people from all walks of life to join the movement. One of Martin's major campaigns was the Birmingham Campaign in 1963. Birmingham, Alabama, was known for its harsh segregation laws and violent treatment of African Americans. The SCLC organized a series of nonviolent protests, including sit-ins, marches, and boycotts, to challenge the city's segregation policies. The protests were met with violent resistance from the authorities. Police used dogs, fire hoses, and clubs against the peaceful protesters. The images of the brutality shocked the nation and brought widespread attention to the civil rights movement. Despite the violence, Martin and his followers remained committed to nonviolence and continued their protests. The Birmingham campaign led to significant changes. The city agreed to desegregate public facilities and improve the employment opportunities for African Americans. The campaign also paved the way for the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which outlawed discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Martin's leadership in the civil rights movement was characterized by his commitment to nonviolence and his ability to inspire others. He believed that love and peaceful resistance were the most powerful tools for achieving justice. His dedication to the cause of equality and his ability to mobilize people made him a key figure in the movement. One of the most iconic moments in the civil rights movement was the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom, held on August 28, 1963. The march was organized by civil rights leaders, including Martin Luther King Jr., to demand equal rights and economic opportunities for African Americans. The march attracted over 250,000 people from all over the country. They gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C., to show their support for the civil rights movement. The event was peaceful and powerful, demonstrating the unity and determination of the people. At the march, Martin delivered his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. Standing on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial, he spoke about his dream of a world where people would be judged by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. His speech was a call for justice, equality, and unity. It inspired millions of people and became one of the most significant speeches in American history. The March on Washington was a turning point in the civil rights movement. It brought national attention to the issues of racial injustice and inequality. The march showed the strength and determination of the civil rights movement and demonstrated the power of nonviolent protest. The success of the march also helped pave the way for the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. These landmark legislations provided legal protections against discrimination and ensured equal rights for all citizens. Martin Luther King Jr.'s leadership and his powerful "I Have a Dream" speech left a lasting impact on the civil rights movement and the nation. His vision of equality and justice continues to inspire people around the world to work towards a better and more inclusive future. The Birmingham campaign was one of the most significant and challenging campaigns led by Martin Luther King Jr. and the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC. Launched in 1963, the campaign aimed to end segregation and racial injustice in Birmingham, Alabama, a city known for its harsh segregation laws and violent treatment of African Americans. The campaign began with nonviolent protests such as sit-ins, marches, and boycotts to challenge the city's segregation policies. Martin Luther King Jr. and the SCLC, along with local activists, organized these events to draw attention to the injustice faced by African Americans in Birmingham. The protests were met with violent resistance from the city's authorities. The police, led by Commissioner Eugene Bolt Connor, used dogs, fire hoses, and clubs against the peaceful protesters. The brutality was shocking, and images of the violence were broadcast across the nation, highlighting the harsh realities of segregation. Despite the violence, Martin and his followers remained committed to nonviolence. He believed that their peaceful resistance would expose the injustice and bring about change. The protests continued, and more people joined the movement, strengthening their resolve. In April 1963, Martin was arrested and placed in solitary confinement. While in jail, he wrote the famous letter from Birmingham jail, defending the strategy of nonviolent resistance and explaining the moral responsibility to fight against unjust laws. The letter became an important document in the civil rights movement and inspired many to continue the struggle for justice. The Birmingham campaign led to significant changes. The city agreed to desegregate public facilities, improve employment opportunities for African Americans, and release imprisoned protesters. The success of the campaign demonstrated the power of nonviolent protest and the importance of standing up against injustice. The Birmingham campaign was a turning point in the civil rights movement. It showed the strength and determination of the African American community and gained widespread support for the cause. Martin's leadership and commitment to nonviolence inspired others to join the movement and work towards a world of equality and justice. In 1965, Martin Luther King Jr. and the civil rights movement faced another significant challenge: the fight for voting rights. Despite the passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964, many African Americans in the South were still denied the right to vote through discriminatory practices such as literacy tests and poll taxes. To address this issue, Martin and the SCLC organized a series of marches from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama. The goal was to demand voting rights for African Americans and draw attention to the barriers they faced. The first march took place on March 7, 1965, and became known as Bloody Sunday. On Bloody Sunday, about 600 peaceful protesters began their march from Selma, crossing the Edmund Pettus Bridge. As they reached the other side, they were met by state troopers and local police who used tear gas, clubs, and whips to brutally attack the marchers. The violence was captured on television and shocked the nation. Despite the violence, the protesters remained determined. Martin called for a second march, which took place on March 9, 1965. This time, the marchers were met with a court order preventing them from completing the march. Martin led the protesters in a symbolic gesture, kneeling in prayer before turning back to Selma. Finally, on March 21, 1965, the third and successful march took place. With federal protection and the support of thousands of people from across the country, the marchers completed the 54-mile journey from Selma to Montgomery. The march culminated in a rally at the Alabama State Capitol, where Martin delivered a powerful speech calling for voting rights and justice. The Selma to Montgomery marches were instrumental in the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, which outlawed discriminatory practices and ensured the right to vote for all citizens. The marches demonstrated the power of nonviolent protest and the importance of standing up for equality and justice. In 1964, Martin Luther King Jr. was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in recognition of his efforts to combat racial inequality through nonviolent means. At the age of 35, he became the youngest person to receive the prestigious award. Martin traveled to Oslo, Norway, to accept the prize. In his acceptance speech, he spoke about the struggle for civil rights and the importance of nonviolence. He dedicated the award to the movement and the millions of people who were fighting for justice and equality. The Nobel Peace Prize brought international attention to the civil rights movement and highlighted the effectiveness of nonviolent resistance. It also reinforced Martin's commitment to using peaceful means to achieve social change. His message of love, justice, and equality resonated with people around the world. The award also provided Martin with a platform to advocate for broader social and economic reforms. He spoke out against poverty, economic inequality, and the Vietnam War. He believed that true justice required addressing all forms of inequality and oppression. Martin's receipt of the Nobel Peace Prize was a testament to his leadership and the power of nonviolence. It inspired people to continue the fight for civil rights and work towards a world where everyone was treated with dignity and respect. After receiving the Nobel Peace Prize, Martin Luther King Jr. continued his efforts to address social and economic inequality. He recognized that the struggle for civil rights was not just about ending segregation but also about ensuring equal opportunities for all people. In 1966, Martin launched the Chicago Campaign, focusing on the issues of housing discrimination and economic injustice in northern cities. The campaign aimed to draw attention to the challenges faced by African Americans in urban areas and demand fair housing practices. The campaign faced resistance and violence, but it highlighted the need for comprehensive social and economic reforms. Martin also initiated the Poor People's Campaign in 1968, which sought to address poverty and economic inequality across the United States. The campaign aimed to bring together people of all races to demand better living conditions, fair wages, and access to education and health care. Martin believed that poverty was a fundamental injustice that needed to be addressed to achieve true equality. The Poor People's Campaign planned a massive march on Washington, D.C. to demand economic justice. Martin traveled across the country to rally support and bring attention to the campaign's goals. He spoke about the need for systemic change and the importance of lifting people out of poverty. Despite facing challenges and opposition, Martin remained committed to his vision of justice and equality. He believed that the fight for civil rights extended beyond racial issues and included economic and social justice for all people. On April 4, 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. was assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. He was in Memphis to support sanitation workers who were striking for better wages and working conditions. His assassination shocked the nation and the world. Martin's death was a profound loss, but his legacy continued to inspire people around the world. His message of nonviolence, justice, and equality left an indelible mark on history. The principles he championed continue to guide movements for social justice and civil rights. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is celebrated every year on the third Monday of January to honor his contributions to the civil rights movement and his enduring legacy. His life and work remind us of the importance of standing up for what is right and fighting for a world where everyone is treated with dignity and respect. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream of equality continues to inspire people to work towards a better and more just world. His commitment to nonviolence and his belief in the power of love and justice serve as a guiding light for all those who seek to make a positive impact on society. Thank you for listening to this story. Remember, learning about great leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. helps us understand the importance of equality, justice, and nonviolence. Keep exploring, stay curious, and always strive to make the world a better place.